Government has announced a 21.7% increase in the producer price of cocoa, despite the risk of up to about 20% drop in harvest compared with last season's already disappointing output.
Producer Price Review Committee has reviewed upwards the producer price of cocoa from 5,520 Ghana cedis per ton to 6,720 Ghana cedis per ton.
But ranking member of Parliament's Agri Committee, Dr. Akoto Owusu Efriye, says per his computation of exchange rate and prices on world market, farmers should have been giving about 100 Ghana cedis more than what they got. He says Cocoa Board is cheating them. Free fertilizer, free spraying, and 5 Ghana cedi bonus per bag are all to be maintained in the 2015 crop season. What more could have been done? This is today's big story. My name is Stephen Anti. Welcome to today's big story. Now, with immediate effect, the producer price of cocoa in Ghana has increased from 350 cedis to 425 cedis per 64 kilo bag, approximately 21.7%. This works up to about 6,720 cedis per ton from a previous of 5,600. On top of that, the Cocoa Board is to maintain the 5 Ghana cedi bonus on each bag and free spraying, free fertilizer supply to farmers, in addition to a host of other freebies. We'll be hearing the Deputy Finance Minister who made the announcement a while ago in Accra. But let's get onto the telephone lines and speak to the ranking member of Parliament, Agrics Committee, Dr. Owusu Efriye Akoto. He's joining us now. Now, Doc, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you and your listeners.
Now, you say that the farmers deserve a lot more, even after all the freebies. Why so?
After all the what?
The freebies, the free spraying, free fertilizer, and some commitments have been made by government. Which,
how many of these farmers enjoy the freebie? If anybody cared to find out, you realize that only a tiny minority of cocoa farmers are beneficiaries of the so-called free policy.
Why? Is it because it doesn't reach them, or it's because the systems work in such a way other people benefit? I mean, what's the problem?
Tell me whatever is free in this world, which is free, except the sands on the beaches. You know, there is this huge black market in cocoa inputs on the domestic market. You go to Kejetia in Kumasi tomorrow morning, you'll find people briskly selling not for sale chemical inputs meant for cocoa farmers. You talk to cocoa farmers, they will tell you that they don't benefit, they don't even get it. And those who get it, not enough is provided. Two sachets for every farmer who gets it, regardless of he's doing 15 acres or 2 acres. What kind of policy is there? And this is why cocoa production is collapsing in this country. And they don't seem to even realize that. It's unfortunate that they are underpaying cocoa farmers for their produce and pretending that they are giving them, all their supplies of inputs, fertilizers and other chemicals free of charge, when in actual fact, only a small minority of the over 850,000 cocoa farmers are benefiting from this very strange policy.
Now, you say that per your computation against the exchange rate and the prices of cocoa on the international market, farmers in Ghana deserve 100 Ghana cedis more. I mean, what calculations did you do?
Well, if you look at the world price of cocoa now, it's up to $3,350 on the London market. And this sharp increase in the last 1 year is ironically because of the drop in production in Ghana. And if you look at that, plus the fact that Ghana's cocoa historically have attracted a premium on the international market. So in other words, what is happening on the London market, you have to add 15-20% of it for the Ghana price. Okay? So if you use that, and the current exchange, interbank exchange rate of around 4 cedis to the pound, to the dollar, then this 70% which the government is saying that it's pursuing will give you something like 550 Ghana cedis per bag of 64 kilograms and not 424. We've been underpaying farmers all these years.
Right, Doc, we'll be getting some reactions from the Cocoa Board, but we'll be getting reactions from Cocoa Board to this effect. I mean, I'd want to put
to for the benefit of your listeners, please let me make this statement.
That's right.
Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are farming almost the same land area for cocoa, 1.7 million hectares. Why is it that Ivory Coast harvesting 1.7 million tons and Ghana is hardly doing 700? We must be doing something very wrong for that to happen, because this issue about is the weather. We have the same geographical area with Cote d'Ivoire. They are next door, the same agronomic conditions. So it cannot be right that are doing more than twice what we are doing, and it doesn't occur to anybody that we have to re-examine our policy.
But Doc, Ghana's fiscal crisis and the fact that global prices of gold and oil are falling means that times are really hard. How can government sustain this 100 Ghana cedi more in addition to all the other commitments that it has made?
You are getting it totally wrong. You are getting it totally wrong. We are talking about cocoa industry. Somebody goes into the bush, sweats 12 hours a day, and comes out with his produce. You make a law to say he should hand over that crop to you. You are going to sell it and give him back his money. And you go and sell it, and you give him less than a third of the proceeds, and he's not even barely able to meet his family obligations of school fees and health care and other things. To go on. That is the reason why production is falling. Something they are not galamseyers or miners. They are cocoa farmers. Their produce means what the yardstick you should use. Don't confuse the issue with this cross examination.
I see. Interesting, Doc. We'll leave you here, and we'll be exploring the issues that you've raised a lot more when we get to Cocoa Board and put them before the public relations officer who will be joining us. But let's first watch the Deputy Finance Minister forcing at today's announcement of the increase in producer price.
The producer price review committee has reviewed upwards the producer price of cocoa from 5,520 Ghana cedis per ton to 6,720 Ghana cedis per ton for the 2015-2016 crop season. As compared to the previous season, this amount represents an increase in about 1,200 Ghana cedis per ton, or 21.74%. This figure translates into 420 Ghana cedis per bag.
Right, Deputy Finance Minister there. So later we'll be getting onto the telephone lines to speak to the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Cocoa Board, Noah Amenya, to discuss some of the issues. But right now we're being joined in the studio by Joseph Opoku Gakpo of our Agric desk. And Gakpo, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, too?
I'm fine, thank you. When I heard that the producer price has been increased from 21.7%, I was happy. I mean, I thought that, well, my poor mother, who is a cocoa farmer, would have something to go home with. But here I'm listening to Dr. Osei Asare, and I'm thinking, we've been shortchanged. Is that what it is? Is that what the figures show?
It's a little interesting. When it comes to, for example, the price of cocoa on the world market is currently hovering something in the region of $3,300 to $3,500 US dollars per ton. Yes, but here in Ghana, per the latest announcement, the price of a ton is going for something in the region of 6,000. So when you do the mathematics, it looks like in cedi term, each ton of cocoa in the world market is going for something around 1,200 cedis. So it looks like farmers are earning just about half of what they are supposed to earn from each ton of cocoa. The explanation government would give is that's why there is cocoa board. That's how come there are a lot of those intervention policies, free fertilizer, free cocoa mass spraying program. They've introduced the cocoa scholarship for their children and all of that. And so people should understand there is even the bit about selling the cocoa out there, and it has to be transported. Someone needs to be paid for the cost. So all of that is what goes into the other margin.
But shouldn't government be bearing the cost of these and not passing them on to the farmer? Like Dr. Usefriye is saying, the farmer goes to the farm, sweats, gets his or her cocoa beans and gives it to government, you know, like a free on board kind of thing, and then they're expecting to get the money back and you give them half. That's not fair.
Well, you can't exactly demand that government gives them the full amount, because the reality is that it's more like a business venture that government has gotten into. Although cocoa is not exactly a business entity, but someone is supposed to cover for those additional expenses. Except that the thinking is that you shouldn't give them as low as half what they are supposed to earn. Then it becomes a little unfair on their part, and especially when what you claim to use the rest of the half for, the free mass spraying exercise, the free fertilizer, the free seedlings, farmers are complaining day in and day out that this is actually not reaching them, and so that then they are better off earning the full price for their cocoa rather than someone taking the additional bit on it and insisting that we are introducing government interventions which you would then benefit from to make up for the additional money that we are not paying to you. In fact, I have spoken to some farmers. They are quite excited about this increment, but they continue to make the point that they think government is earning a lot on cocoa. There are those, for example, who are working at cocoa board who are earning money from it. It's bringing government a lot of money in terms of foreign exchange, and so it will be fair that they are giving at least a bit more than they are earning now.
Just about, I'll hold you and get back and play an interview we had with representatives of the cocoa farmers. Let's watch. Right, I'm told that we are yet to get the interview we had with the cocoa farmers, but the Deputy Minister, Ato Forcing, has been giving further explanations on some of the commitments government is making in the industry.
I would like to emphasize that government will continue to support other interventions, including the free pest and disease control, the mass spraying as we call it, the mass spraying program, the free fertilizer distribution program, in order for farmers to increase the productivity of the cocoa farms. Government and Ghana Cocoa Board is committed to continue with the rehabilitation and replanting of over-aged cocoa farms and farms that have been affected by the swollen short virus disease. In this regard, Cocoa Board will raise and distribute 60,000 hybrid seedlings to 60 million hybrid seedlings to farmers for free during the 2015-2016 plant season. And let me say that last year we did 50 million. So it's an increase of almost 10 million within a year.
Right, so the Deputy Finance Minister is making announcements of specific commitments that the government has put into the sector, including the supply of hybrid seedlings, which are supposed to be pest resistant and also have higher yield in bad weather conditions. As you may know, there is the risk of a 20% drop in harvest for this season because of the erratic nature of the rainfalls. Joseph, so I'm curious that what we had, the reports we had was that because Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast increase is pretty surprised, a few notches up, it put pressure on Ghana to also follow suit. So I'm thinking that with this increment, the 21.7% rise, will it stop the possibility that cocoa beans could be smuggled to Cote d'Ivoire? Is it a solution?
It's a long-running discussion, you know, as to whether really the price is a factor when it comes to cocoa smuggling, because sometimes it's looked at beyond even the price. They're thinking that with the poor nature of roads, sometimes in the cocoa growing areas, sometimes it's a little less difficult transporting into Cote d'Ivoire than transporting to the very central areas in Ghana, which also then becomes an influencing factor. But
I see.
Yes, exactly. But of course, the issue of price is very crucial. It's a bit interesting. Let me just run you through a few figures that we've been able to dig out. For example, when you look at the price of a metric ton of cocoa, comparing Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, you rightly made the point that currently on the world market, it's hovering around 3,300 to 3,500 US dollars. But in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, in 2013, that's the 2013-2014 crop season, a ton of cocoa was actually being sold for 1,546 US dollars, while in Ghana, it was going for 1,201 Ghana cedis. That was back in 2013-2014 series. So there was the 300 US dollar ton difference. That was in 2013-2014. Things changed following the increment that we saw in the 2014-2015 year. In Cote d'Ivoire, for example, it was going for 1,475 US dollars per ton, and then Ghana saw our price going higher than the Cote d'Ivoire one to 1,577. So as we speak, other things being equal, the price of cocoa in our part of the country should be higher than what we see in Ivory Coast. And so the expectation is that yes, then the reverse should be the case, and that the smuggling of cocoa from our shores should actually stop. But government will explain to you that for all you know, that's not exactly the reason why they are increasing it. The explanation they give have to do with the fact that we are seeing an increment in the international price. We're seeing the US dollar gaining stronger, strength than the Ghanaian cedi, and so then all of those margins come into play, which are some of the things that government look at when they are setting the price of cocoa here in Ghana.
So let me shift you back to the fact that government is saying that it's providing farmers with hybrid seedlings, which are supposed to be pest resistant and are also high yielding varieties and are also able to withstand less rainy conditions. Are these things that are necessary in order to perhaps improve the value of our cocoa seedlings compared to Cote d'Ivoire, for example?
Exactly. In the international markets, Ghana's cocoa is considered the best. Every single cocoa manufacturing company you would find anywhere in the world, every single chocolate manufacturing company would want to produce their chocolate and make the point that they got chocolate from Ghana, they got cocoa from Ghana and added to their mix in producing the chocolate. The explanation being that it has better taste, it has better quality, and a lot of this has been attributed to the role that Cocoa Board as an institution plays in our cocoa sector. And what Cocoa Board does include some of those things, the freebies that they give to farmers, so that then they're ensuring that farmers spray their farms and get rid of the pest. They're ensuring that farmers get fertilizer for their produce and all of that. And so those are the things which are really making the difference and helping make the difference. And the thinking is that Cocoa Board could be a more efficient institution than it is now. So there's complaint about the high number of staff there that they pay every month, which is then contributing to their expenses being on the high side, where they will need more money in order to maintain. The thinking is that if they are running a more efficient agency, employing less people and investing more resources in helping the farmers, then they could make a lot more money available, which would go into the individual pockets of farmers, and then that would end up encouraging the production of cocoa. Will this, for example, make a difference in terms of how much cocoa we would grow? There was the point about the projection about us losing more than 200,000 tons compared to last year, for example. Well, immediately, obviously, apart from the bit about that which is being smuggled, which may be smuggled, not being smuggled, no, because it takes time for the cocoa tree to grow, 3, 4, 5 years. So if you are changing or increasing price now and you expect that to have an impact on the amount of cocoa that will come out, obviously not. That may happen in the next 3-4 years, but immediately we are not likely to see much of that.
Joseph, you seem to be in control of the facts actually, and I'm very impressed with that. Let me get onto the telephone lines, and the public relations officer of the Ghana Cocoa Board, Noah Amenya, is joining us. Ms. Amenya, good evening.
Good evening.
I know that the increase in producer price by 21.7% for you should be good news, but there are those who say that if you compare, if you compute what's going on in the international market and what Ghana is getting, perhaps farmers should be getting about 100 cedis more. What can you say about that?
Well, thank you very much. My regards to your listeners. I do not know what those who are making that argument have taken into consideration. But I think that what Cocoa Board has been able to, and government had done for farmers, is the best and needs to be appreciated. If you look at what government has set in place, government has said it will give farmers not less than 70% of net FOB. And what farmers are taking today, together with the bonus that they take over each bag that they present, they are now at 70% of the net FOB. And this is even outside the various interventions. We know cocoa roads are taking place. We know they are getting free grain. They are getting fertilizers, they are getting seedlings.
But if you calculate what they're getting and say you put it at 70% of the net FOB, and you're including the fertilizers and you're including the free spraying, we know that the big challenges, which is making it very difficult for some of these interventions to get to the farmers. So is it still fair for you to still insist that they are collectively, they work up the net of FOB the farmers are receiving?
Well, yes, we can say that. Let's look at it. What you were referring to is what you see on the international market, and that is main crop cocoa. It's main crop beans. This price cuts across main crop and the light crop, and the light crop goes for a discount of 20%. So having leveled it up, you realize that then what the farmers are taking is very high. Because in case they produce light crop because the season is not good, they still present that at the same price as the main crop beans. And the main crop beans goes to the international market, and the light crop, it goes to the local processing companies at a reduction of 20%. And actually, for the distribution of the input that we're talking about, yes, it is going. In fact, there are a lot of farmers who have never put fertilizer on their farms, but now because it is giving fuel, they're able to do that to increase their soil fertility, and their productivity goes up, and their livelihoods are improved. And so this intervention should not be downplayed. It is a very important intervention. Looking at the nature of our farming community, they are not large-scale farmers. They are small-scale farmers, and therefore the ability to buy these inputs is difficult. So if Cocoa Board has been able to do that for them, then it is something that should be appreciated. Right.
Quickly, before you go, let's look at the projection that Ghana stands the risk of about 20% drop in harvest for the 2015-2016 season because of erratic rainfall patterns and bad weather, among others. Are you still optimistic that you could meet the target of 850,000 to 900,000 tons by close of the season, regardless of all these challenges?
Okay, that prediction that there will be a 20% drop is based on the fact that it's also being predicted that the rainfall pattern will not be good. And therefore, the achievement of the target that we have also said is a prediction. And it is also based on the assumption that the weather will be fair. So if these factors, the production factors, are not favorable, obviously we need to review our prediction. And I'm sure that those predicting that it will not rain, if it should rain, they will have to also review their prediction and also say that, yes, it will rain. So when you are dealing with predictions, you are not certain. It is something that you hope to achieve based on the assumption that certain factors will be in place.
Right.
And therefore, all these things are based on something that should be reviewed when the game changes, when the factors changes.
So we should be hopeful, yes or no?
Yeah, yes. We are okay. Hopeful.
All right, Mr. Amenya, thanks very much for your time on today's Big Story. So earlier I said that we spoke to some farmers, representative of the Cocoa Farmers Association. The Vice President spoke to Joy News. Let's watch.
Compared to the incentives we get from Cocoa Board, I think this will be enough for us. Nobody will send this produce for few price. The announcement we heard from Ivory Coast yesterday and what we've heard today, Ghana's price supersedes that of Ivory Coast, and nobody will send his produce for fewer price. Yeah, the price will motivate us. So we will work hard just to get enough beans, as you are telling.
All right, we'll bring you more of that on Joy News Prime. But Joseph, let's wrap up. So Are the prospects good? I mean, for this season. I mean, I know that we're trying to be hopeful against the fact that we are at a crisis point, considering the fiscal challenges we have, and the fact that on the global market, the drop in prices of oil, revenue, and gold could be affecting us generally. So we really must do well in cocoa. Is there hope?
Well, time will tell, as they always say. Unfortunately, the poor rainfall patterns appear to be affecting crops even just beyond cocoa. There are projections that cereals like maize and all of those, it's likely that we'll see a drop even in how much we produce. But unfortunately, cocoa is direct foreign exchange, which then would affect the entire nation. Going forward, I think the priority should be ensuring that the interventions really succeed, that every ordinary cocoa farmer gets all of those freebies that Cocoa Board is actually promising. That is what would actually help make the real difference. Right. The weather patterns, we obviously don't have much control over.
Right, Joseph, we're grateful for your time. My name is Stephen Enti, and thanks for staying with us on today's Big Story. Enjoy the rest of our programs.